What's going on, everybody? It's Sam T. It's coming at you for the Grueling Truth Sports Network. And today, or this afternoon, I'm doing a quick recap of the games from August 23rd for the NBA playoffs. I want to go over all four just very briefly, talk about some highlights, some lowlights, some interesting ideas moving forward, and what these games mean, not just for the upcoming series, but also for some of these franchises in the future. And the first game I want to start off with is obviously the Clippers versus the Mavericks. And Luka Doncic, of course, there's a storyline of this game. He had 43 points, 13 assists, 17 boards. I think it's like the first time anyone's ever had that kind of stat line. It's just insane what he's able to do. And he's not even a super athletic player necessarily. He's just a very polished player. He's always in the right position. And, of course, he has that game-winning three-point step-back shot. He hits over Reggie Jackson. That is going to be the start of all of his highlight reels from now until whenever he retires some point in the 2020s or 2030s. He looks like a top 5 player in the NBA right now. He doesn't have a great defensive component to his game yet, but in terms of offensive ability, he's right up there with guys like James Harden in my mind in terms of what he can do. He's a better rebounder than guys like James Harden as well, so that adds to it. And right now, in this series, and keep in mind, he missed some time in one of these games, he's averaging 31 points, 10 boards, and 10 assists if you round. So he's dominating right now. He's beating up a Clippers team that have two of the best defensive players in the NBA in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Now, the other storyline from this series is Kawhi Leonard's going out and performing like we'd expect Kawhi Leonard to perform. The man who's not performing well is Paul George. And, of course, Paul George, the quote he now has that's kind of been put off across every radio show, every TV show. He said, I'm not James Harden. I'm not the guy who can take all those shots. I'm not going to do that. I do more than that. He's basically saying I do more than James Harden in a sense. And he's talking about probably on the defensive side of the ball. He's a great defender. He's a good rebounder. He can facilitate a little bit, but he's not knocking down shots. And this is becoming a dire situation for the Clippers because he performed very well in game one of the series, but since then he's only averaging 11 points, 4 assists, 9 boards. And that's just not good enough. I mean, like, if LeBron James or Anthony Davis was doing that, number one, they might be tied or even losing the series to the Blazers. Number two, they'd be getting torn apart. And Paul George has somewhat avoided that, even though some people are calling him out for it. He's avoided getting torn apart for his play this series. And just last year, before he got hurt, he had a shoulder injury. Before that, he was a player who was in or putting together a resume for both the MVP and Defensive Player of the Year conversations. And now he comes out this year. He battles injuries at the start of the season, and he had plenty of time to get healthy. He's healthy now, but he's underperforming severely, and he's leaving Kawhi Leonard to be the really only superstar on this team over the past 3 games. That's how it's been. Paul George has been outperformed by plenty of players, both on the Mavericks and on his own team, the Clippers. I don't think this is an indictment of Paul George, but at the same point, I think this is a situation we need to monitor because if he doesn't kick it into gear, there's a serious situation here where if the Mavericks snag Game 5, there's a real chance the Clippers get eliminated in round 1. And if they did, that's a huge blow to the legacies of every player and coach in that organization on that team. Kawhi Leonard can survive that, and he's already got 2 Finals MVP awards. Paul George, who's never been to the finals, cannot. So this is a significant series and a significant year for Paul George. Because it'd be the same thing that happened if Anthony Davis and the Lakers failed to get past the first round. It's essentially the same situation, I think, for Paul George. People just don't necessarily view it that way because it's Kawhi Leonard versus LeBron James as a duo, or as this guy as their running mate. So I think there's a little bit different of a dynamic to that situation. But ultimate takeaways, Luka Doncic, top 5 player in the league, at least offensively. Paul George, struggling. This is a year that will impact his legacy for the rest of his life if they get knocked out in the first round or don't make a serious run at a title here. All right, on to the next game. That was fairly predictable, but at the same point, unpredictable because of what happened during the actual game. The Raptors completed their sweep of the Brooklyn Nets, and we saw it coming. The Brooklyn Nets didn't have KD, didn't have Kyrie, they didn't have Spencer Dinwiddie, they didn't have DeAndre Jordan. So really, what was the point? We already knew they were going to lose this series. The Raptors went out, swept them, but it was the way they swept them last night that really made the difference, I guess you could say. Kyle Lowry only played 9 minutes. He left the game, did not return. And the official ruling was it's an ankle sprain, so we don't know what he'll be for next series or when he'll be available again to play again. But there's a significant loss. At the same point, it didn't really change the outcome at all because the bench went out and scored 100 points. So, and your bench is scoring 100 points for you, you're probably going to win the game. I think that was a record since the start, keeping track of bench points. And the Raptors just dominated. The Brooklyn Nets scored 122 points, but the Raptors had 150. And you just can't match a team like that when their bench just gets red hot. Even the Stars did all right, but they didn't have a great game. They didn't need to, though, because the bench just torched the Nets. But anyways, that was kind of what we expected. Nothing really new there. On to Utah and Denver. Now, this has been one of the most entertaining series I think we've watched so far. And the Western Conference, let me just tell you, the Western Conference playoffs have been so much better than the Eastern Conference. It's not even close. The West has been just entertainment at every turn. The East has been kind of predictable and just boring in a sense. Not that boring necessarily is bad in some cases, but this series and this conference has just been so much fun to watch so far, especially the Nuggets Jazz, because the Jazz are up 3-1, which I didn't expect. I thought Denver would win the series in 5 or 6 games, but instead the Jazz are up 3-1. And yesterday, Donovan Mitchell became the first player since the only other player besides Allen Iverson and Michael Jordan to score 50 points twice in a series, so in a playoff series. So this has been a phenomenal coming out year for Donovan Mitchell, and he's had some success in the past, but he's really struggled with, I want to say, the mental aspect of the game at points during his first couple of playoff series. He was not always there. He made some silly mistakes. He struggled shooting-wise. Even the first game of the series, he takes a backcourt violation, which was just like, it was, at that point, it was classic Donovan Mitchell to make some kind of mistake like that, to have it just a mental mistake at the most crucial time of the game. But I think he's proven in the last couple outings that he's getting there. He's ready to be a star. And last night he went out there, scored 51 points, 129 and 127 win. So huge performance for him. The Jazz would be nowhere without Donovan Mitchell. They absolutely need to focus on him as the key player of that franchise moving forward. Jamal Murray also came out, had a big night for the Denver Nuggets. And he's really come out, I think, in the past couple of games and proved that he can be a star as well. Because really, he was middling in the first couple of years of his career. He was a good player, a good starter, but not really an all-star caliber player. During the last couple of games, he's been much better. He's been performing at an all-star level. And I'd argue that at points, he's been even better than Jokic. And last night, 11 rebounds, 7 assists, 50 points for Jamal Murray. I mean, that's everything you could ask for from him. It's just that other players on the team, like even Jokic, he 29, 7 boards, 6 assists. So pretty good performance from him. I don't really know if you can ask much more from him. But Millsap needs to do a little bit better. You need more from Michael Porter Jr. on the bench. And if you score 129 or 127 points, you usually win a game. But the Jazz just can't stop them. You can't – the Nuggets defensively do not have an answer for the Jazz. And it's showing right now. This series could end in 5 games. I hope it doesn't because, like I said, it's been really fun. And I love watching Michael Porter Jr., Donovan Mitchell, Jamal Murray share a floor. This is great because it shows you that the league is in good hands. It shows you a bunch of really good young players out there who are ready to become stars or who are going to become stars in the future. In the case of Donovan Mitchell, he might already be a star. But anyways, my takeaways from this game, Denver needs to find a way to defensively hunker down, deal with Donovan Mitchell. If they don't, they're just going to get killed over and over again. Even if it means giving up more points to Rudy Gobert in the paint, I'd say you need to find a way to solve the Donovan Mitchell problem. Otherwise, you're done. And I'd also like to highlight, like I said, how well Jamal Murray's been playing. He's been playing really well. And if he carries this momentum into next year, we could see potentially an all-star season from Jamal Murray. Now, will he carry the momentum into next year? I really don't know. But there's a potential there for him moving forward to be an all-star player and be better at what he's been in the past. And finally, on to maybe the most painful series if you're a Philadelphia 76ers fan. But also there's some people who are rejoicing actually over this loss because it means that Brett Brown will not be coming back next year. Or at least that's the belief moving forward, is that Brett Brown will not be coaching the 76ers in 2020. Elton Brand at GM could be in trouble as well. It sounds like he'll be back, though Brett Brown won't be. So the 76ers got swept by the Boston Celtics. There was, of course, last meeting last night. 110-106, Boston wins on the back of Jason Tatum, 28 points. Kemba Walker also coming through. He's had some troubles during the bubble, but he's got 32 points last game. So he's putting in work. They win the game, 76ers. 30 points from Joel Embiid, 10 boards. No assists, but 3 steals, 2 blocks. Basically doing everything he can to try to drag this team to at least one playoff victory. Without Ben Simmons, they can't get there. They lose. Now, what happens to Philadelphia moving forward? Well, Brett Brown has to be gone. If I was the 76ers, I would get rid of Elton Brand as well. It doesn't sound like they're going to do that. But I would just clean the house in the front office and coaching staff because you need something new here. You have talented pieces in Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. You got 2 really good defenders, and you've got 2 of the most versatile players in the game today. You can't get past the first round of the playoffs this year. I know Ben Simmons was hurt. Obviously, that changes everything. But even without him, you still have Tobias Harris. You got Josh Richardson. You've got players there who could – ordinarily, I would expect the team, even without Ben Simmons, I would expect this team to make it past the first round. They didn't. I think the Celtics are a superior team. I think they're possibly going to go represent the East in the finals. I like them that much. But if you're the 76ers, this is a total flop, a total failure. And I think it's time that you blow up the front office, blow up the coaching staff. You have to consider the core of your team moving forward. I like Ben Simmons a lot. I'm less high on Embiid because I think the game has moved a little bit away from his playing style. I think it's more focused on versatile centers who are good passers, who are much better ball handlers than Joel Embiid is. Not that he's not versatile or athletic or a good ball handler. I just don't think he's as good as some of the players we're seeing take over the position. And I don't think he's a decent three-point shooter, but also not a fantastic one. Not on the same level as Karl-Anthony Towns or someone like that. So where do they go moving forward? Do they keep Ben Simmons? Do they keep Joel Embiid? Do they blow his whole roster up? I think the issue with this team right now is Tobias Harris and Al Horford. Tobias Harris is basically just supposed to be a spark plug on offense. He's supposed to score a lot of points. I thought at one point he was a borderline all-star. I'm now taking that step back. I don't think he's an all-star at all. I don't think he's in the conversation to be an all-star. I think we've seen the peak of what Tobias Harris can be, and it's just a very high-caliber scorer. It's just a high-caliber scorer. That's really what his peak is. The issue with that is that he goes on a lot of hot and cold streaks, and he's not playing at the same level as someone like Jimmy Butler, who they had last year, who was really good on both ends, who could facilitate, who could be clutch. He's not that guy. Al Horford's old, very old. He looks at this year. He hadn't looked at it in the past. Well, we started to see a little bit of it last year, but it wasn't the same as it is this year with the Sixers. He just doesn't look like the same player that he used to be. He lacks that ability to play a key role in the defense. He's not necessarily being that useful as a playmaker on the offense because of the guys they have in Philadelphia who already handle the ball a lot or take a lot of outside shots. So I think Al Horford's a bad fit for the 76ers. I think Josh Richardson's been hurt all year. He hasn't really gotten a chance to fit in with this team. And he's also a guy who's kind of a shaky shooter. We can't rely on him to go out and get you 20 points a night because he just isn't that kind of guy. And then, of course, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, the injuries will kill this team over time because, like I said, these guys are both players who can't stay healthy for the long run. I know Ben Simmons has been healthy recently, but now he's out at a critical time in the season when you absolutely need him to be around. Joel Embiid can never play 70 games in a year because he's always injured. So what do you do with this organization moving forward? I think you have to keep Ben Simmons because if he does develop a three-point shot, he will be on the level of a LeBron, a Luka, even like a guy like James Harden. He'll be at that level if he develops a three-point shot. Even if he hit 35% of his threes, he will be a top 10 caliber player in the NBA because he's got that elite defense. He's got the ability to facilitate. He's got the size and the body to basically shoot from anywhere. So you need Ben Simmons to develop. You absolutely need that. And if he doesn't, it's kind of on him and on your coaching staff. And you're just not going to really progress moving forward because you need him to be a better player offensively if you're going to be a better team. I know people defend him not shooting threes, but let me put it this way. If LeBron James refused to shoot a three, you would absolutely massacre him. So I don't want to hear Ben Simmons being defended for not shooting threes because we hold the highest caliber players in the game to a different standard. And if Ben Simmons wants to prove that he's one of those caliber of players, he needs to shoot threes. He needs to develop his game offensively. He needs to do more than what he's doing, even though he already does a lot. On the flip side, for Joel Embiid, I think we've seen what Joel Embiid is at this point. He's a guy who gets injured every now and then. He goes through cycles where he's healthy, in shape, really good, gets injured, adds weight, comes back a little bit out of shape, gets healthy, gets into a good weight, gets injured, and the cycle begins all over again. He's a dominant presence on the interior. Probably him and Rudy Gobert are some of the best defensive centers in the league. I just don't know if you can win with that kind of playing style anymore. And Brett Brown, Brett Brown showed the problem with this. When you have Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid on the floor at the same time, Ben can't score unless he's near the cup. So he's got to be working his way in. He's got to be driving. He's got to be cutting and slashing. Joel Embiid is best when you have him near the rim. So he's got to be down there as well. What results from this is you either have one of those two guys down there or you have one of them on the outside where defenses don't really care. If you have Ben Simmons out beyond the three-point line, I'm not going out to guard him because he's not going to shoot a three. You put Joel Embiid out there, you know what? He's not a great three-point shooter, so I'll let him go out there. I'll give him extra space, and I'll sag off the double team someone else because I'm not worried about Joel Embiid shooting threes. I'm worried if he's in the paint. I'm worried if Ben Simmons is in the paint. So I think we saw a situation where the 76ers just have too much of one thing, and they need to make a decision. They're going to make a decision with the coaching staff. Brett Brown will be gone. I think you need to look at this roster. You need to make multiple personnel decisions if you want to actually have a competitive team moving forward.